detective thrill me.
Thanks for joining us again, and Happy New Year. Jared, thank Christ we got through 2020 because it was a prick of a year. We're going to start with something decent in the new year. So we're going to start with 2010's Unstoppable. But before we get to that, Jared, what have you been watching? Have you seen anything in the last few days?
I have. So I kicked off with Jingle All the Way. That was the last Christmas movie I watched. Look, I couldn't help it. It's the Christmas season's not complete without Arnie punching a reindeer.
Look, it is kind of, it's fucking batshit crazy, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, well, I watched it with my son, and the scene where Arnie gets in a blue with the fucking crooked group of Santas led by Jim Belushi, piss funny. I mean, we were both laughing like fucking idiots. So, yeah, look, it was fun enough to go back to again. I watched Stand By Me after our Stephen King discussion. I chucked it on and had another look at it. Yeah, so good. I'm keen to go back and read the story again too now. I have lost my copy of different seasons, but I'll have to maybe pick up another one and have another read of that and Shawshank Redemption.
Well, if you pick up an extra copy, that's, Stephen will be very... He will thank you for the extra money. He needs the money.
I won't buy it second hand. I'll make sure he gets the cash out of it. I see it as sort of a charity, looking after the people that need it. So, getting on to Shudder, not to kick them for once, I'm going to give them a bit of credit and talk about what I actually do like about it. As I said to you, Adam, me signing up for them was I felt they had a two-pronged attack. They were going to give me, niche stuff from their own making, and they were going to pick up some oldies and some some classic slashes and some underseen stuff that we could dig into. The one thing they're poking me with a spear at the moment. There's only one prong, and it's the original stuff. So I checked out The Pale Door. As I heard, I'd heard that wasn't too bad.
That's a horror western, isn't it?
Yeah. It was pretty solid. Like, the story was fairly. You kind of knew what was going on, but it had some very creepy sort of moments. Again, it suffers a little bit from, you can see, a lack of money in some parts, but I felt they did pretty well overall. They hit a few sort of emotional moments in there, which was pretty good. So yeah, I would say to check it out.
Right. Okay.
And the last one,
just on that though, I think their single prong seems to be firmly ensconced in my asshole because I haven't been near the fucking thing for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, look, but they have dropped a couple. They've dropped that one about there's something. What is it? There's something about Jacob or whatever it's called. The possession one, which I've heard is fairly good. I jumped on things like Spiral pretty quickly. Obviously, the Creepshow stuff is I've been really enjoying it. So yeah, just a few more of those movies dropping, which is nice to see, and hopefully there's a bit more of that to come. I think we're going to get something like, as far as I'm aware, I think Psycho Goreman is dropping on there, which looks pretty funny. So even when it wasn't a good one, like Random Acts of Violence, which I fucking hated, I was going to watch that where I could get it. So the fact that Shudder gave it to us is sort of, I'm happy enough with that stuff coming through. We just need them to ramp up and pick up some of the old slashes and some of these underseen things and some... they seem to be dropping a couple of foreign ones on there, which is good. But again, we just need a bit more of it.
Yeah.
And the last one I watched, which I've given you a fair old rundown on anyway, is Wonder Woman 84. Got into the cinema and checked out. Actually, I saw The Croods with the kids too, which was... Yeah. You know what? I actually thought that was all right. I had a good time with that one. Wonder Woman 84, not so much. Yeah. I didn't have a good time with that.
So it's not good.
It's not good.
You're firmly in the not good camp.
I'm firmly in the not good camp. I mean, one of my mates brought it up with a post on social media about, he was fucking very displeased that they kick off with a bit of Wonder Woman, but then we don't see her again in the Wonder Woman costume for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm like, fuck, we should be in the third act by now. we still had an hour to go by then. So, I mean, 2.5 hours for the type of movie that you produced is fucking criminal. I was fuming to be sitting there for 2.5 hours by the end of it. But it's just confused. I mean, I thought DC had found where they wanted to be. I really loved Birds of Prey. I know a lot of people didn't like that, but I loved Birds of Prey, and I thought Shazam was excellent too. And there was a lot of fun, and they were stories that were just contained in the group. But this one seems to be... I described it to you as the cinematic equivalent of watching Gal Gadot sing that fucking Imagine stuff on YouTube with a bunch of bozos that she cobbled together. Like, by the end of it, it seems to be trying to be some fucking grand statement on humanity, and I just didn't... I don't know. I just didn't like it. I told you what I was happy with. I was pretty happy with Kristen Wiig when she was sort of evolving into Cheetah, and I felt she did a decent job, but there wasn't enough Cheetah. And I mentioned to you very early on I was getting Jamie Foxx Electro vibes when before she'd kind of started to turn into where she was going. And Pedro Pascal is entertaining to watch, but I mean he is mugging and hamming from the get go, and it's. Obviously, that character is a bit of a commentary on a particular political figure that we're all well aware of. But I don't know, it just gets fucking lost. It's just
are these superhero movies? Because I haven't watched one in a while, right? I'm not going to say that I'm a well versed in the superhero sort of stuff. But are they now pushing too far into trying to make something more rather than being entertaining in the first instance? Because it's not the first time this sort of shit's come up. Certainly about stuff by DC more than Marvel. I think Marvel's got a much better handle upon being able to add some statement to a film that's entertaining.
I think DC's still caught a little bit in... They can't let go of The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, and they have to go a little bit gritty, and I think that's going to work for certain things. I'm not gonna tell you that I'm not fucking absolutely frothing for the Batman, because once that trailer hit, I was absolutely just wrapped up in it, and I think it's going to work for that. But I don't know. Wonder Woman, the first one, found that pocket. Even though it was set amongst the wars and whatever, it still had this small group that was the driving the story, and it was all about them. This one just gets lost. It just gets lost too much in trying to fucking... I mean, we're flying...
I think we've talked about this before, but
we're flying to Cairo, and then fucking politics comes into it, and just like that. No, it's not what I'm here for.
I think that we've talked about this before, but DC doesn't seem to understand the light and the dark, Batman is dark.
This is what I'm telling you. Like, Birds of Prey and Shazam did. Birds of Prey had a little bit of that grittiness to particular, it was violent and whatever, but they were going for the laughs with Harley Quinn, and they really found it. Shazam's excellent.
Yeah,
if you haven't watched one in a while, you need to watch Shazam.
Yeah, it's more of a sort of a good, entertaining, fun romp, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shazam.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. It just, I really enjoyed that one. I felt the story focusing on the little family and the kid trying to kind of integrate into this family was I loved it.
The whole thing with Superman that they've done, like they've kind of fucked Superman up.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's meant to be that lighter.
They've been working on that for a few pictures now. Like, I didn't hate Man of Steel, but I already started to have some problems when we had to wave Kevin Costner off. I was looking forward to films worth of Kevin Costner as Park.
We had to kill fucking Kevin Costner, and then the bloke had to be working on fucking Deadliest Catch. Like, I was just sitting there, what the fuck's going on? He's working on an oil rig, for Christ's sake. He's Superman. He does not work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And when you go gritty and Superman's brooding and grows a beard, people start asking questions about how Superman shaves and shit like that. We don't need that. We don't want to ask those questions.
Do you know what? I actually think Superman Returns got it more right than those ones. And it wasn't great.
Yeah, it screwed some things up, but again, I found things in there that were a bit more enjoyable, and the Superman they were going for was far more what they should have been going for with the more recent stuff.
But in Superman, the first hour of Superman Returns, I really loved. I actually it felt like Superman the movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
In tone and shit. It had that going for it. It went tits up at the end, and I believe it was fucking 2.5 hours too. So shit. Of course, and like you, I was fuming.
Yeah.
For 2.5 hours, but it had more going for it than Man of Steel and Batman and Superman and all of these ones. They seem to have taken Superman and kind of fucked him over. I mean, we're not saying anything that most other people aren't saying, you know.
No, and I thought DC made a really good call to start to branch off and do stuff like Joker, which was a one-off. And you know, I didn't love Joker. I still got some problems with it, but I'm much more open to just tell your story. Try not to tie into some of this shit. But yeah, I was not pleased with Wonder Woman 84. Look, rule of thumb: if you're a superhero film and you're walking into pitch, if I'm producing it, if I'm in charge, and you say 2.5 hours, I say I'll stop you there. Unless we are 20 films into a fucking successful, you know, Marvel
franchise.
Universe-esque setup, we're not going there. We're not going to 2.5 hours.
Yeah, agreed. Like, for me, you can't tell me you can't pare this stuff back and tell an entertaining story with a little bit of depth in 90 minutes or 100 minutes.
Yep. I mean, when I saw the, you know, if I saw the cut of this movie and it was kind of as boring as it panned out, I'd have been fucking storming into the editing room and saying, "Cut. We need to cut some shit out of this because people are going to be not pleased to be in there for 2.5 hours."
Yeah, I'd be taking over the editing
boring.
room like Steven Seagal.
It was boring, unfortunately. So yeah.
Disappointing.
Disappointing.
Right, I didn't watch a lot.
Oh, hang on, I forgot one. Before you get on there, we had to talk about this. I watched Dark Angel with Dolph Lundgren.
I fucking love that movie.
Love it.
I do.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great fun.
It's cheesy as shit.
I said this to you the other night. Lundgren was a hair off being an A-lister. He just needed, you know, a couple of things to go his way, or at least being a Seagal. You know,
he just needed to find his way into.
Successful.
He needed to find his way into one of those movies that the other blokes did. He needed to find his way into a Predator or something like that, and he never did, unfortunately. But funny we mentioned stuff like that. This alien character was doing things. I mean, obviously, when you watch it, you're looking at it going, they've taken hefty cues from Terminator and Predator. But the stuff the Dark Angel, you know, the aliens in that do, they actually use a bit of Predator and Predator gear and do a bit of running before we saw some of that stuff from the Terminator, funnily enough.
Yes. I
mean, have a look at that disc. That disc, if I remember correctly, that disc didn't come into it until Predator 2, right?
Yes, it didn't.
So
it did not.
I think, you know, Predator 2's been pinching things from Dark Angel and haven't got the credit for it.
Nobody's going to admit to that.
Okay, I might be on an island there. So.
Yeah. But I love that movie. I think it's great fun. It's got a little bit of comedy. Look, Dolph's a little stiff, but he's solid. Like, I said this to you before. I would take a Lundgren picture over a Seagal movie any day of the week. Any day of the week.
Seagal probably had a couple more peaks because he had people find a couple of movies that played to his skills. But if you're looking at just, you know, if we're going on average, if we're looking at an average Seagal picture versus an average Lundgren picture, I'd probably go with you there. He's a much more likeable presence, put it that way.
Didn't you watch that Lundgren one that you said looked like it was shot in a fucking warehouse?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think he might have plumbed some deeper depths.
Oh, he's plumbed some depths. Don't worry about that. But if we're talking the middle ground, he's a much more likeable presence. He can put a performance in. I mean, Creed 2, for instance. His work in Creed 2 is excellent. Like, his older Ivan Drago is a really, really good piece of work. Yeah.
By him. He just needed, like, he could have handled an Under Siege. Like, an Under Siege would have worked with Lundgren in it.
Yeah. And that, you know, as we said the other day, if Dolph's hosting Saturday Night Live, he's not telling you how to try and write comedy like Stephen is.
Jesus Christ. dearie me, I would love to see some of those sketches.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have been unfunny even with the best of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a humorless man.
He is.
But Dark Angel, though, I love it. I just love that the one liner of "I come in peace, you go in pieces."
Brilliant.
Fucking
That's
brilliant.
Right. And it you knew it had to be a Craig Baxley movie when the aliens have guns that just result in anything that it hits fucking exploding into flames. So I just thought this is what Craig Baxley has always dreamed of. When he got to direct the picture, he's like, I need a gun that just blows things up. That's what I need.
Well, so what do you do? What's on the call sheet today, Craig? Explosions.
Yeah.
Where? Who cares? Everywhere. So I finished off Expendables 2. I said that obviously I'd watched half of it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about fun. Like that's what the series was aiming for. And they have a bit of a laugh with it, and they don't take it themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And you know that whole sequence of Arnie and Bruce Willis driving around in a fucking smart car and shooting people. Yeah, I loved it. I love that shit. The only thing that's a little bit over the top is Van Damme. Let's face it, he fucking whoops Stallone's ass in any fucking blue.
Yeah, I think so.
He whoops his ass.
Yeah.
And I do love that bit where he gives him the big spin kick and then he sort of says, over so quickly, I want my money back. I like that. But then, of course, Barney gets up and fucking kicks his ass. No.
Yeah.
No, that's not happening.
Who named him Barney? Was that Sylvester's choice?
See,
I mean, that's no Axel Cobretti.
No, it's not. It was Marion Cobretti, not Axel.
Sorry, Marion. I'm still thinking about the fucking.
Axel
original.
Foley was
supposed to be
Axel Cobretti.
Yeah.
Jesus.
In my head, I'm just imagining that picture, that Beverly Hills Cobra.
Yeah, look, my understanding of part 3, as I haven't watched it in a while, is they just needed to there was no need to bring in all this young fucking group. Because just bring in Mel Gibson as your villain, bring in Harrison Ford and Antonio Banderas, and do the same fucking shit.
Yeah, but I just felt like it wasn't as fun, if I recall correctly. The fun was coming from Banderas, but we missed a bit of that Verlaine and a bit of the Dolph cracking gags and shit, so...
Yeah. So I haven't watched 3, but I'll get there. The only thing I watched in full, because for some reason I found myself watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's comeback movie, The Last Stand.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, I only got about halfway through it. Talk about middling Arnie.
That should have stalled the comeback right there.
I think it did.
It's not very good.
He has not been a draw at the box office. I mean, who would expect he would be? He's in his 60s. But
look, it's no surprise that Arnie is now... he's changed his tune on coming back for Predator movies and things like that. I think Arnie sees the writing on the wall and knows that's the only thing that's going to get people watching me anymore.
But then again, mate, the bloke's getting fly kicked in the back and barely flinching and he's fucking 70-something.
I'm not saying I don't...
44... I'll go down like a fucking sack of shit.
I'm not saying I don't love the bloke, and I would see if he drops something in the cinemas, I'll go and see it. I mean, I watched fucking Chasing Gunther or whatever the fuck it was called.
So you're the one.
Yeah. But I'm talking about Arnie's, it's a business, and if Arnie's not getting outside that core audience and putting up the big numbers, he's not getting to pick and choose his movies anymore.
No. You saw Terminator Dark Fate, didn't you?
I did, and I didn't mind it. Unfortunately, Arnie's character was the worst thing about it.
His performance was pretty good, though, wasn't it?
His performance was all right, but I just couldn't get past the fucking laughable reasoning for him being there.
Yeah, true. I've heard about what that was.
Yeah, fucking shithouse. Fucking ridiculous.
But the problem with The Last Stand is it's a middling sort of action movie, right? So it's not particularly great. The idea is kind of okay, it would have worked better with someone like, I don't know, Statham or something like that. A younger man. Because there's a fucking fight he has on if I remember correctly, and I haven't got to it the second time around, he has a fight with the main villain at the end on, like, the border bridge.
Yeah.
Fucking lunacy. The bloke would have kicked his fucking ass. Like, kicked his ass. But they kind of make out like Arnie's in the fight, and it's just bullshit. Like, you needed a younger bloke.
I've got a question for you.
What was I doing on Stan watching The Last Stand? I don't know.
Because I was digging through Stan and looking at it and seeing all this. I mean, I watched Dark Angel and then I saw, the Joshua Tree. That'll be up next. Like, so I'm not asking that question. I understand that.
I can't be trusted, Jared. I shouldn't have these fucking things.
Well, you're telling me a few minutes ago, I questioned why I still have Stan, and then you're sitting there watching that. So that's why you still have it. But anyway, is there room for Arnie in the Fast and the Furious somewhere?
No.
There's room. Look, no, see, you need to watch it because there's room for Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I know, but Kurt Russell, he's this CIA guy, pulling the strings, puppet master guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
In that shit.
Yeah.
He's still got a mullet. We love Kurt Russell.
But we love Arnie too.
Well, I love Arnie, but...
I mean, I can see Arnie mentoring, The Rock. Arnie's what The Rock, Arnie used to be what The Rock is, and there's a bit of, there's a bit of Hobbs and Shaw like back and forth between Arnie and The Rock. I mean, I can't wait for it. It writes itself.
Yeah, look, there's no room for Arnie.
But there's room for fucking submarines. There's room for submarines in a car movie. There's room for Arnie.
There is, but they're going in a different direction. Like, they're getting
they're going away from Vin Diesel
properties and that. They're trying to go away from Vin Diesel.
Yeah, they're going to go. They're trying to go. They're trying to go unleaded. They're trying to go unleaded, converting away from diesels.
Yeah, they're fucking converting it. Yeah, they're trying to go fucking hybrid. They're going electric, getting away from the bike.
Yeah, well, Arnie loves electric. He's a man of, he believes in climate change, so Arnie would be up for that. He'd drive an electric.
Arnie should just stick to making videos where he's fucking stroking his bloody donkeys or whatever called whiskey and fucking whatever it's called. That's his lane now, mate. He needs to get
back. He needs to get back to punching donkeys. That's what we need to see.
No.
No, look, but he.
There used to be an age bracket on action heroes, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have action heroes who were fucking 70. And I don't want to come back to the worst thing that's ever been done in to Gibbo's life, which was Rambo Last Blood. But that is the major reason, well, not the major one, but it's one of many, but it's a huge reason why the film doesn't work. It's a fucking 70-year-old man.
Look, no, I disagree. Sly wasn't necessarily... Look, I'm not going to say Sly wasn't the problem because he's got his fingers in the writing and the directing and everything, but...
No, he wasn't the problem, but part of the problem was he couldn't do anything.
Yeah, but...
Couldn't have any punch-ups or anything. The guy's fucking... He throws a punch, he throws his arm out.
Yeah, I know, but we still got away with it with Rambo. Because it was...
Yeah, but he was 60.
Yeah. So...
And he was fucking on HGH.
Yeah, but he still is. He's still...
I know, but it doesn't work after a while.
Hey, look, I'm putting it out there. That's where if Arnie wants to do something, that's where he's got to go. He's got to be carried a little bit.
Yeah, look, he can see Arnie's problem that Sly doesn't necessarily have is Arnie can't really play a mentor.
No,
because his acting's not real good. So
don't play a mentor.
Okay to do that.
Just play a grizzled, silly old bastard that just can't let it go. Just art imitating life. So I just. Yeah. But, I was excited about what Arnie was doing with the Predator Hunting Grounds stuff because they did a little bit of the Friday the 13th work there where Arnie comes in as old Arnie and you can find information about what Arnie's been doing, what Dutch has been doing, since the first movie. But unfortunately, the game's fucking lost me, so I didn't find out too much about it. I don't know what Dutch has been up to. I know what he looks like.
Just look it up on YouTube, mate.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't see too many avenues left for the bloke.
Yeah, there's not a lot of avenues. And watching The Last Stand sort of said to me, And this was what? That was in 2013 or something, wasn't it?
It's got to be in something else where he's not. I mean, if it's a Predator movie, it's got to be a Predator movie where Dutch is in there, but it's not necessarily Dutch's movie anymore.
No, well, it can't be Dutch's movie.
That's why I'm suggesting something like The Fast and the Furious, because it's a bit like The Expendables, where you can find something for him in there where he might be able to get a little bit there and we'll get a bit of enjoyment out of it, but it's not carrying the same old shit. But that was
kind of...
It's sneaking him into a big budget picture that's already got it all set up. It's a heist flick.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were doing with Expendables.
Yeah.
With him. Kind of keeping him as a sort of a side piece, side project that, as part of it he comes in, but he's not the main star. In the words of Rodney Rood, the guy doesn't break wind, he breaks dust. So he's fucking 74 or something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't translate well to the screen. Stallone also doesn't translate as well, but he's in better shape. He's been doing this for a long time.
Oh, mate, they're both replacing shoulder joints and shit like that. They've fucking peas in a pod.
I just think Sly can step back a little and do a little bit of acting. Sly can step back and do a little bit of acting. Arnie really can't, unfortunately.
No.
Which sucks because, I love Arnie.
Mm-hmm.
The only actual thing I watched, and it turned out I'd actually watched it previously, for some fucking reason I thought I hadn't, was a documentary on Netflix called The Innocent Man.
Yep.
The John Grisham novel, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
It was his only non-fiction work, I think.
About Ron
Williamson.
Yes.
But this one has, I don't know whether the book has the same, but this one covers the ground of there's 2 murders in that same place within 2 years.
My recollection is that it didn't. That the stuff towards the end was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. But the thing that I just can't get over, because at the end of the first episode I was kind of like, I think I might have seen this. But I was pretty hooked again, so I just kind of went through it. The thing that gets me is, spoiler alert, if anyone hasn't watched it, but the murder involving the girl that was killed in her apartment, 2 people go down for that murder and are then cleared by DNA in 2000 and, it was in the late 90s, I think. So they're cleared by DNA. They didn't do it. There's another murder still on the books 2 years later, prosecuted by the exact same group, and there are problems with that. Surely you're fucking looking at it. Surely if you're the prosecutor and the DA and that, you're going, fuck, maybe we did make some mistakes. Maybe we should fucking look back on this. But once again, they're holding their ground, saying, I haven't done anything wrong. You have. You said that they stabbed this girl to death. When they found her corpse, she'd been shot. That is fucking 100% wrong. So that means their confessions aren't legitimate.
Yeah.
Is that not correct?
Yeah.
So you fucking look at it.
Every time we watch one of these, we're sitting there going, why are some people just steadfastly hanging on to that these are the people, we've got the people, when everything says, no, it might not be him or her. It's, I don't know, it's baffling.
I mean, the whole thing for the second crew, the second murder, it starts with, we give a statement that there were 3 of us and we took this girl and we took her off and we killed her. And one of the guys that they said did it, he's got a rock solid alibi. And yet no one goes, okay, so these dickheads they've told us a story that involves 3 people and then one of them had a rock solid alibi, couldn't have done it. Could it now mean that the confession we just got out of him isn't really that good?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
It's just, no, proceed as normal. It's just ground that's covered there. I mean, it just seems like, and I don't know whether this is just the US. It seems like it's big in the US that the policing was, you just go for the conviction. You do a little bit of work to find the person, and obviously back when a lot of these were happening, the DNA, whatever, wasn't a factor. So you do a little bit of the legwork, you zero in on a person, and then you just fucking hammer that person until they confess to something they didn't do. Like, that's just what it seemed to be.
Yeah.
And
look,
you hear about
right.
some of them saying that's the technique. You know, you put heat on people. You keep them in an interrogation room for fucking 15 hours until they're fucking pissing themselves on the chair and begging for some food that they'll confess to anything. Like,
yeah, but you give them a polygraph test, it's not admissible in court. But the moment that fucking reads they may have lied, it's good. We're good to go.
Yeah.
That seems to be how it sort of operates.
And the pendulum swung back because a lot of the psychology and whatever has broken down that method of putting someone away and said, no, this is unreliable because people are you're essentially torturing people until they will say they did anything just to get out of the fucking room.
Yeah. Look, I'd suggest it happens in many other countries too.
I'm not saying it's just, but we seem to have a dearth of information on the way that it was done in America, and it seems to always come down to similar policing techniques that hammer these people that didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting documentary, and I'm looking forward to the, as I said last week, I'm looking forward to the one about the Night Stalker.
Yeah, well, that's the one I haven't watched.
Next month.
I haven't watched the Ripper one because a bit like you, I'm sort of... I got sort of fatigued by the consistent. Every week they're dropping true crime stuff. So when I saw the Ripper one, I was just like, but the Night Stalker ones holds a little bit of interest. So I think I would hold
on the Ripper until you've seen the Night Stalker, and if you've got an itch to scratch, you've got something there. Like if the Night Stalker one's really good, then you might feel, this one's here as well. But yeah, the Ripper's nothing special. Put it that way.
Yep.
All right. That's everything for me. Let's take a break, and here's the trailer to 2010's Unstoppable.
I'm a little closer. We're working together today.
All right. This ain't training. In training, they just give you an F. Out here, you get killed.
1206, there's an unmanned train on the northbound track.
It's coming straight at us.
That train's carrying toxic chemicals. We're talking about a missile the size of the Chrysler Building.
So right now, chase it down in reverse. A train that size going that speed, it'll vaporize anything in front of it.
We have been told to anticipate an event radius of 45 miles.
Nothing's wrong. Just tell your sister I love you both. We got a real chance to stop this thing. Pick it up speed.
Unstoppable from 2010, directed by Tony Scott, who gave us Top Gun. It's produced by Tony Scott, Eric McLeod, who produced Kong Skull Island, Mimi Rogers, the actress Mimi Rogers, who produced Tricks, and Julie Yorn, who produced Max Payne. It's written by Mark Bombach, who wrote Live Free or Die Hard. It stars Denzel Washington as Frank, Chris Pine as Will, and Rosario Dawson as Connie. The budget was $100 million. The box office was $167 million worldwide. And the trivia, the attempted train derailment was all filmed in one take. All right, Jared, give us your thoughts, mate.
I was pretty high on this when we saw it in cinemas, but in the ensuing time, I thought, were we just hard up for something to watch? And I've overrated that because it's just sort of fallen by the wayside. Like, not a lot of people sort of talk about it much anymore. Funnily enough, there was a Ringer article, 2 months ago, breaking down 10 years since it had been released and how it's kind of actually a very, very good movie that's kind of just been forgotten almost. So going back to it, I had not watched it since we saw it in the cinemas. And I'm pretty sure I saw it with you. I can't recall exactly, but I'm pretty sure we went and watched it together. I hadn't watched it since. So there was a recollection in my mind that perhaps I must have been overrating it because it's just dropped off. So going back to it was really good to see that no, it's actually a really fucking good movie that a lot of people just haven't seen. So I think I'm going to go for to be honest.
4.
It's just it's a brisk little. It's not even really an action movie, but it plays like an action movie.
It's kind of like a disaster film.
Yeah. It just plays like some of the classic sort of action beats, and I think they're really smart in that they collect a couple of people together that aren't anywhere near each other. They're all just in communication by phones and radios and whatnot. So they managed to get a bit of an action movie vibe to it by people trying to get involved in it, but it's different people going. I think the big strength is obviously you got Denzel, who can just make any character kind of just a bit deeper. It just seems to be, I don't know whether it's writing or whether he just gets involved, because he always seems to just get a little bit of depth through it. And it often happens just through just little conversations and things. So getting him involved, getting Chris Pine, who I think was extremely underrated for quite some time, seems to be getting a bit of his sort of dues now. And you got Rosario Dawson as well, holding down quite a few scenes there. I think it just holds up really well. There's a couple of little things that I'm not so big on. It's funny to say it possibly wraps up a little bit too quickly. Like it seems to, a couple of the complications seem like they're going to be a little bit heftier, and then when they actually figure it out towards the end, it seems to go pretty quick. But pretty minor complaints, really. It's excellent film that is just, pardon the pun, but it's just fucking rolling from the get-go. It's just rocking along like a steam train from minute one, basically. Yeah, and you know what, Jared? 100 minutes. Not even. 100 minutes long. Not even. I think it's 98. It's just shy, and then obviously you account for the credits. Yeah, so Wonder Woman 84. And it's pretty fucking dense too. Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's a fair bit going on, and they managed to get it happen in 98 minutes, which makes sense because they're trying to kind of put the clock on it from the start, and you're spot on. You know, it starts rolling from the get go, and look, I'm probably in the 4 range as well. I unlike you, I had seen it since the cinema, and I always really liked it. I thought it was one of Tony Scott's best. You know, Tony Scott, I'm a massive fan of Tony Scott's work, but he sort of had peaks and troughs. You know, he kind of had some really, really good stuff, but then he had some really real shit. I mean, Domino, I don't know if you ever saw that one. No, I steered well clear of that. That was fucking garbage. Whereas Man on Fire was just before that, you know, like he was kind of one of those guys who, and Pelham 1, 2, 3 wasn't great, you know, so this was kind of like I think this might have been his last film. It was, is that not correct? Yep. Yeah, it's fucking sad to think because it's a real winner to go out on. Yeah, look, it's a real solid thriller with some action beats. I mean, the premise seems ludicrous. And it's kind of a dislike, and I know that how the train got under power seems legitimate, I believe, based on the true events. Yeah. But even when you see it, you kind of like, what the fuck? Yeah, look, I think I can pinpoint that, and I'll talk about that in the dislikes because I've got a big one around that. So. But Tony Scott directs it really, really well. He kind of knocks off a little bit of his over-the-top directing stuff. And it's just a nicely streamlined thriller. And you're right, Denzel and Chris Pine have a couple of scenes where they're only like 2 minutes where they're sort of having a quick discussion or they're bringing up some shit. But it fucking fits perfectly to what you're trying to get. You know, and it gives you character development in like 2 minutes, which some of these movies could learn from. But it's a real winner for me. My only dislike, I have a major dislike. I've got a couple of minor dislikes, but I have a major dislike that revolves more around the kind of bureaucratic villain that they have. Yep. I understand why he's there, and his presence necessitates some of the complications at certain times. But yeah, I was just kind of like, I don't know whether we really needed him. He sucks up some screen time that we probably didn't need. We could have gone a different way, perhaps. I'll talk about it in the dislikes, though. Right. Straight off the bat, excellent cast. Yeah, absolutely. Across the board. Yeah, and 2 really likeable leads, excellent actors. Rosario Dawson in the main supporting role, again, very likeable actor, just really real quality. And most of the people in those roles are filling things out beautifully. Could have done without TJ Miller. I mean, every time I see that bloke now, I just think, fuck, every time you hear something about him, he's a bigger arsehole than he was before. So, so every time I see him in a movie now, I'm just like, oh, shit. But I'd forgotten he was in it. But other than that, pretty great.
Yeah, I forgot he was in it too. I mean, he's really barely in it.
Yeah, but playing to type by the looks.
Yeah. My favourite character is fucking Ned.
Oh, he's great. He's
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
He's rocking around like some sort of fucking guy who just rolled out of Studio 54.
Yeah. I love his intro where he's talking to the waitress and she's just like, yep.
It's about precision.
I also love when he rocks up and he holds his pass and they're like, it says you're a welder. And he's like, lead welder.
But also, he gets the call that there's something going on. He fucking drives out of the car park like he's in the fucking Dukes of Hazzard. And then he gets down there, and when those other two turn up, he just starts fucking heaping shit on them.
Yeah.
He just starts heaping shit on them for minute one.
Well deserved.
You
well
fucking
deserved.
idiots. Yeah. But he kind of disappears too for a period.
I mean, if you lack that character, you miss a bit of what's going on at the stations. So I think it was a really smart choice just to have him there and reporting on what's going on and interacting with the cops at the stations and shit like that.
Yeah, and he doesn't need to be a key contributor all through the film. He only needs to be contributing when we need him.
Yeah.
And that's why one of my dislikes I will talk about is it does seem to be very heavily stuffed with characters. It's very, very heavy on characters. There's a lot of them. But for the most part, that doesn't affect it greatly because they cut around all that. They move character to character when they need them to be an important contributor. For the most part, that works. But the character, like the actors are all excellent. I think Tony Scott's direction is really, really good here. And the editing involved is fantastic. The way they cut the news footage in.
Yeah. And he actually does something similar
sort of seamless.
He does something similar to Top Gun, where, we talked about how Top Gun, considering that what was going on, it was really easy to tell what was going on in the sky when that could have just been fucking just been looking at it going, shit, I can't see what's going on. The trains, they just do really simple things like make one of the trains red, one of the trains blue. So as soon as you see the train, you know which train you're looking at. Like really simple stuff like that just makes it so much clearer when you're watching it that this is what's going on. I think he made quite a few nifty choices in that sort of stuff.
I usually don't like this type of filmmaking in the sense of he does a lot of, to sort of keep the action and the tension going, he circles the cab. Like, the camera's constantly kind of circling the cab, and you're getting Denzel with his head out the window, or he's on the radio and the window's open, and then we circle around and Chris Pine sort of picks up the conversation. He circles the cab a lot. And initially, something like that, I think of Michael Bay in that fucking terrible scene in Bad Boys 2 where he's circling through the toilet block. And I think this stuff sucks. Like, this kind of shit sucks. But in this case, it works because you've got to keep some kind of momentum. When you're sitting in the train, it's kind of boring if we did nothing, if we didn't give it some flair and some flash. Because the whole movie is on this kind of like, it's like a roller coaster. It's just off at a shot from minute one, and you're trying to sort of ramp it up the whole way. So you kind of need to throw in a little bit of that flourish, and that's where he does it, and he does it well. The camera work is really good in those sequences, and it kind of adds a little bit of that sort of suspense to it.
Yeah.
So I like that, and I think he does a really, really good job. And the key thing for me, it's strange to say this because I don't really look this deeply at this sort of stuff, but the sound design with the train, it sounds like it's fucking growling. Every time they get close to it, it's got this loud sort of rumble and growl about it. It kind of gives it almost like a fucking bit of character. I really dug that. I think that was a really cool, and the way the first shots of the movie is a train in its spot, hasn't moved yet, and they kind of as it comes up with Unstoppable, you just hear this kind of, it's like I thought that was a really cool little thing to add.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like you get a bit of it's little touches like that. Yeah, I'll look at something like Jewel. Steven Spielberg did the similar things like that, and he did similar things that he did with the shark in Jaws. Like it all plays together, which is why I think that sort of stuff is one of the reasons why it plays a bit like an action movie.
Yeah. They kind of sort of soup it up a little bit when it's more of a sort of a thriller / disaster film. Somewhat. I really like the opening credits. It's wham bam, kind of get you quick understanding of where Chris Pine's at.
As we said, there's a few movies out there that could learn some lessons. It's fucking in less than 3 minutes with no dialogue. We pretty much understand that Pine is out of his home, living with someone else, and
not able to see his son,
not able to see his child. You kind of get that pretty easily from that opening couple of minutes. And then in less than 5 minutes, we can see there's a bit of tension regarding the fucking union situation at the trains, the train depot.
Old guys, young guys.
Yeah.
His first name gets him jobs.
Yeah, but you get the sense that Denzel's cordial enough that he's gonna, he's gonna go sort of past that, but also hold him to a standard when he needs to. You get all that stuff pretty quickly, and you sort of, okay, well, how's this going to play out? It just adds that little bit rather than two blokes just rocking up and saying, hey, we're on a train together, off we go. Like, just that little bit of complication within the cab, as you mentioned, it helps the film immensely.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Denzel actually brings it up, that your surname gets you a job,
It takes a while, but they pace it nicely about when they bring that shit up.
Pine takes offence to that sort of shit and starts saying, I'll write you up and all that.
Yeah. And then it's 15 minutes. It's under the 15-minute mark before the train's off.
Yeah,
and we're into it.
The train starts rolling during that opening credits, doesn't it?
I believe they start getting things together. They start putting together that they've got to move this train and whatever. But yeah, it's certainly under the 15-minute mark when fucking Ethan Suplee jumps out of the cab and off we go.
So in 15 minutes, we have set the train on the tracks. We've put the our two heroes in the train together, but there's some simmering tension.
Yeah, a little bit of a standoff.
We've understood why. Yeah, and then we've got Pine on the phone trying to deal with his problems. Denzel on his phone trying to make up with his daughter because he's got her birthday, and we kind of get all that shit in there, and it's all these little small sequences that don't take a lot of time, but they're done really kind of, they've pared them down perfectly to exactly what you need.
Yep. And, speaking on that,
which I think is great.
There's a particular one early on, and I think it's, if I recall correctly, it's after they've already had a bit of a tension about how they're gonna do things here. I think it might be Denzel telling Pine to get off the phone and let's get moving or whatever. But then I absolutely love the conversation that brings up, you're married, and Pine says, oh, it's sort of a long story, and Denzel's like, we got a long day, and starts kind of bringing up that conversation, and then goes into the ice-breaking stuff about his daughter's working at Hooters. It's fucking fantastic. It's so good. And it illustrates the character of, there is some tension here, but the guy is still trying to make this work, which has an even bigger payoff later. But he's holding Pine to a standard, making sure he's good enough to do the job and that he can do the job, and, expresses to him at points, it's not training. It's just fucking life and death. If we do some of this shit wrong, but he's still sitting there like, right, we've got some time here, let's get to know each other.
Yeah, and I love the whole idea of where he turns the train on the the little gimbal thing and realises he's turned it the wrong way. And it's kind of once again showcasing the old head and the young guy who's kind of doesn't really know what's going on, and he tries to kind of blow it off by saying, and the same thing happens when he picks up 5 extra cars.
Yeah.
he tries to sort of blow him off by saying, well, if you would just fucking give me 5 seconds to think, I could have done it. But it's because he's on the phone and shit. And he's,
I mean, there's mental stress for his character that's playing into it that Denzel doesn't know about. But then there's also, that creates tension. He's blaming Frank's, he's blaming Frank for the issues when it's, there's mental stress there, and Frank ends up, getting to that and uncovering a little bit of that. But it's nice the way that it all plays out. It's compelling to watch these two guys sort of get going in scenes that really are. They don't hold a hell of a lot to the plot. There's a couple that add to complications along the way, but in a lesser movie, they could just be palmed off with shitty conversation that doesn't actually uncover much about them.
Well, that's what I liked about it. Even though that didn't have necessary payoff to the outcome of the film, it felt natural. It felt real. It dug into some of the things we'd already sort of touched on at the start, and it was really, really well acted. Like, that's part and parcel of this kind of stuff, is you get two really good actors in the same place with a reasonably written stuff. They'll work with it, and it seems like that's sort of what's going on. And it comes off perfectly for the most part. There's not really a dud scene between those two.
No, I don't think so.
I really like the sequence, and I'd forgotten about this. They use it in the trailer, and it's not really a big deal. The whole thing about the school kids.
Yeah.
On the line.
Yep.
It's not really a big deal. In the trailer, it makes out like that's going to be one of the things the train's going to have a head-on with this other train.
Yeah, and it's out of the way pretty early, really.
Yeah, it's out in the first... I mean, the train hasn't even got up to full pelt by the time that's out of the way. But I love the way that's shot where he shoots the conductor looking all fucking worried, and then the next shot is straight down the bloody railway line directly at the train coming towards them, and you think for a second, fuck, they're going to get hit. And then they slip into the siding.
Yeah.
And the kids kind of get all excited because the train rushes past. It's kind of like, for a second
like
there, I've forgotten all about this.
It's like they were already there, but the way they've shot it is that it's just like, it just goes past. That all follows up some really, again, setting things up really quickly of Rosario Dawson in the office, and then Ned trying to switch the track and keep an eye on the train, and then the kids come into it. It's all just it's all so quick, and as you said, it's tense because the fucking story is rocketing along like the train is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, once again, really, really well shot. It's one of those films where there's plenty of obstacles that can be in the way, and they're used pretty well. Usually in a lot of these movies, there's one or two too many obstacles, or a couple where you're kind of like, oh fuck, this just we're getting out of hand.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they kind of set the tone that these are the things you would do if this was happening.
Yeah.
There are certain things that we would have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So first we try and chase the train down and get on it. Then we try and drop someone on it to get in the cab. Then we try and derail it. We try and shoot the emergency stop. It all feels legit.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it probably is. It's all protocols that you would supposedly go through if this happened.
I also think they're quite smart with the fact that for the early complications that Frank's involved in, he calls it. He knows this isn't going to work. He says, we can't go into the siding because we've got too many carriages. He says that the derail is not going to work. And so when they actually get to the train and he's not confident, you're like, okay, this is where the shit's going to hit the fan. Because everything else, he's pretty confident. He knows what he's talking about and has been proven correct. So then when the parts where they get there and he's not sure, and it's, it has a little bit of a, isn't entirely sure about what he's being told by the I can't even remember what his title is, but the rail agent that's in the office with Rosario Dawson to alternate the accelerator and the brake or whatever he's talking about. When he's unsure about that, that's when you start to get a little tense and you're like, oh, okay, this is where we're going to get the twists and turns about how it's going to go down.
Yeah, and I really, really like that. I think they do a fantastic job of just ramping it up slowly and steadily, that we're coming into that final bend where the thing's going to just come off.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you go in too fast, we're fucked. There's nothing else you can do about it. We're screwed. And, you know, adding the chemicals, look, that's probably a little bit too far. Not too far, but it's another sort of complication that's there. But it never becomes anything more than...
Well, it's only really for the last one, right?
Chemicals on there.
Yeah, it's only really for the last one. It's like they missed their chance to derail it when people weren't around. So if they derail it now and those chemicals go off, they're fucked. And if they don't stop it by the bend, they're completely fucked. So it's
exactly.
sort of just to add to that this shit's going to blow up. So yeah, I was okay with that. But as you said, it was just kind of there. It was just there to as hovering over everything they were trying to do. I was a big fan of the payoff about Frank already being given his notice.
Yes.
And it's a nice piece of writing because it's one of those things where you're like, well, I should have got that, but I was just hooked up in everything else. I was just hooked up in everything else that this shouldn't be a surprise, but when it happens, you're still like, oh shit. So I really loved that little payoff and about he's just like, well, I'm not listening to you because there's people that need to be saved and my job doesn't mean shit because you're fucking canned it anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
This is how it's going to play out. And it also adds the layer to that character that he's going out of his way to teach this kid the ropes. Yeah, he's being hard on him, but he's going out of his way to teach this kid the ropes when he doesn't have any fucking skin in the game anymore. Like, he could just
he's already been fired.
Yeah, he could just be turning up, and so it adds to the character of the man, you know.
Yeah, I dig that. I really dig that. And again, I'm like you. It was a surprise to me the first time I saw it, but yet it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, that's right.
They'd already talked about it at the start with Frank.
Well, they were talking about the situation, but just because he didn't mention it and he was still there, you're just like, oh, okay. So it's just going to be a bit of tension. It's just good writing, I think, that you don't automatically say, yep, he's already been fired.
Yeah. I really like the sequence where they try and put the guy on the top of the train and they try and slow it down with the train in front. Mm-hmm. It's fucking really, really well directed. In a time where we do a lot of quick cuts, and there are a lot of quick cuts in it, but it's the editing and everything. We know exactly where everything is. We know exactly what's happening. The tension's fucking ramped up to the max because old mate hits the ground and gets fucking yanked through the window 2 seconds after touching down.
Yep.
And then suddenly we've got the other guy trying to slow the train down himself with his train. And, of course, then it ends with, as only Tony Scott can, something exploding. A massive explosion.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, other than Craig Baxley, Tony was a fan of similar types of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's a really, really well-directed scene and really well-edited.
Yeah, I thought that was, that was quite nice as well. I just, again, pretty exciting stuff. As you said, it was mainly the sort of direction and that was keeping it tense and making it more than just another thing that the train had to go through, where they had to go through to try and stop the train.
Yeah, I dug that. But I also then, not long after that, we get... I love the way Denzel plays this too when they say who was in the cab of the other train. And they mention it's the bloke that he was sitting with. And just for a split second, you kind of see his face and he just looks fucking distraught. And then he kind of gets back into it because he realises, bigger fish, lot at stake.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So, it's just, Denzel at his fucking finest.
Bigger fish to fry might not be the best choice of words there.
No, perhaps not. No, he was. Yeah.
Glad you caught yourself on that one.
I caught myself on that one. But there are bigger issues at stake, even though his mate has just died.
Yeah, correct.
And he just plays it really well. It's only a split second, but it just shows, again, this is why I love Denzel. He never phones this shit in.
No.
Like, this sort of movie would have been the kind of thing that an action star of previous, a major action star would have phoned in. Because the whole action part of it is the train barreling through everything.
Most of those action stars on their best day couldn't muster what Denzel could when he's had a fucking stumble out of bed with a fucking hangover and doesn't want to be at work, he's still giving you better, probably.
Yeah, exactly. That's the luxury of having a bloke like that in a movie like this. But again, I mean, I think we're talking about it, saying it's more than just a by the numbers action film.
Yeah, correct.
And I think that's sort of showcased by when Will tells his story about what's been going on with him.
And I think, all this stuff fits, other than the situation is we have to stop a runaway train rather than there's a cackling villain and a bunch of henchmen. Other than that, all the stuff fits that mould.
Agreed. And that's why you're right when saying it plays like an action film, but it's not really an action film.
Yeah.
In the sense of the heroes aren't, shooting people and doing all that sort of shit.
Yeah, but other than that, they're the guys in the the wrong place at the wrong time. There's the old head and the young buck, and they're butting heads over certain things. There's those scenes when they're people are in danger, and there's the scenes where they're running on the trains and stuff like that. There's all these little things that fit perfectly in it, but it's not quite that.
Yeah, because it's got a bit more depth, and that's what I was saying about when Will tells his story. I just like the fact that he fucked it all up.
Yeah,
he's in the wrong, all of it. It's not like in some of these movies there'd be a sort of a mea culpa. I wasn't actually. She was having an affair with him, or she was texting him. But I love the fact that he just goes, the kicker was she wasn't. She was talking to someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm just
right.
like,
I mean, you watch the, we go back to The Last Boy Scout, and Bruce Willis's character seems to be the biggest asshole on the planet, but it's his wife's fault.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're supposed to like him, and his wife is supposed to be the bad person in this relationship. She's having an affair. Da. I mean, quite frankly, what was his name? Joe Hallenbeck. He never comes home, and he lays in fucking empty tinnies every night.
Yeah.
No wonder she had an affair.
I jumped in the sack with some bloke that didn't smell like a brewery. Like, can you blame me?
Exactly. But in this case, we get to know Will before we hit you with this.
Yeah.
So we've worked with him and Denzel. We've found we found him a kind of a likable presence. We've got a little bit more out of him, and we sort of see him as, he's a guy, and he's going through a bit of a tough time, but he's a nice enough guy. And then he tells the story, and basically he acts like a fucking arsehole.
Yeah.
The whole story is I'm a prick, basically. But yet we already care for him, so we're prepared to let it go. In a sense of, yep, okay, that's happened. Now we've got to get back to sorting this out.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the way they did that. They kind of didn't. They took their time to give us that. I mean, it's an hour old, I think, when he tells that story, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's quite deep into it.
But again, I just love the fact that it's his fault.
Yeah.
And then Denzel just sort of, there's always time to fix this. There's always an opportunity to fix it. And so I like that, it's just kind of a little bit of wisdom from the old fella. Not just about trains, about life, so to speak.
Yeah.
What else have we got here? I think the last 30 minutes is where it really sort of crackles. After we get past trying to derail it.
Yeah, it starts
really
to...
kind of comes home with a flourish,
Yep.
And all that stuff where they have to get out onto the train, and I really like that sequence where the grain, is it grain?
Yeah, it's the grain. Well, it's past that, it's past, as you said, Denzel's already said the things like there's still time. And that's kind of applies to the train as well. He's talking about his life, but then that's the point where everyone's all on board. It's again, pardon the pun. I seem to be coming out with them fairly regularly, but they're all in, and they're all doing what they need to do, and that's where, it does crackle. It's sort of, we've done away with the conversations. We'll leave that to sort of Rosario Dawson to sort of talk about where we are and let us know the situation, and then those two, Frank and Will get into trying to actually stop the train.
Maybe that's why it feels so quick. You know, why the ending kind of comes about so quickly.
Yeah, it does.
Because we've done away with all that and it's just racing towards the end.
Yeah. I mean, I said it felt quick, but when you look at it, it's probably a good sort of 20 minutes of runtime where that stuff's going on. So, yeah, it is super exciting. I mean, I did have to laugh. I do like the grain scene, but I'm like, rather than someone shooting at him or something like that, a bit of grain starts blowing in his face. That's what we're dealing with.
But I do like the fact that the way they shoot the scene where he kind of trips and falls down in between them.
Mm.
And for a split second, you think he's gone, and they kind of shoot it. They cut away for a second, they cut back, and it looks like he's gone.
Yeah, and the grain and stuff means you can't really see him anyway.
Yeah. I really like that. It's real, and they do it quickly. Like they do it, it's shot in proper speed, so you don't it doesn't go suddenly into slow mo where he goes, that type of thing. It just happens suddenly, and you kind of like fuck, and you think he might have died, So I like that. It was just really nice. And it's a wrinkle, and you're right. It doesn't sort of involve guns and punch-ups and things like that, but it's a sort of action-esque wrinkle that kind of gets added, and I like that.
Yeah.
And he gets injured too, so that then puts Denzel back on having to get out there.
Yep. I also love Denzel saying, don't take the shoe off, just chuck this on it, just put a bit of tape on it, she'll be right. Your toes hanging off, just tape it back on.
Yeah, don't worry about that. My last two lines, because going right into that, the finale is just all the way, including hitting the bend, and it's all tense about how fast the thing's going and all that kind of stuff. But I love the fact that Ned pulls up next to him.
Oh, yeah.
And then proceeds to call him a fucking pussy.
That's right.
Jumping into the cab.
True to character. I mean, my foot's hanging off, but I'm a pussy for not jumping off the train that's moving.
It is a train moving at fucking 30 miles an hour, and if I slip, I go under it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. I was glad that Ned found his way into that.
Yeah, and I love the final sequence where he is just holding court.
Yeah, that's right.
on the mic going, it's all about precision. So how'd you feel out there? I felt like I was in my comfort zone.
Yeah,
and
it was
the mic
good.
just goes, all right, yeah, thanks, Ned.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like, again, classic Denzel when Rosario Dawson rocks up and goes, I'm looking for Frank and Will or whatever. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm going to kiss first. And Denzel just looks at her and is like, me?
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Classic stuff.
And I love the fact that it kind of ends. It doesn't drag on.
No, it's pretty quick. It's only a couple of minutes, and then we're into the...
Am I to assume that that's the same day? No, it's not the same day, is
it looked to me like it wasn't the same day, because Ned was in a suit, the other guys were wearing different clothes, the girls were there.
And Will's foot was all properly bandaged up.
So I thought it was another... I thought it was another day.
Hard to tell.
Yeah.
Did you have any other likes?
No, that was it for me.
That I forgot. All right. Dislikes. I don't have a lot of huge ones. I have one big one.
I only had one that I would say is big. I had a very minor one right at the start. Almost the very first thing. Yeah. I know Tony Scott's got his little directorial sort of hallmarks and his little touches. I didn't feel like we needed that strobe effect when we're looking at a fucking stationary train.
Yes.
I was just like...
Initially I was thinking, fuck, Tony's gone back to his old tricks.
Yeah.
He's immediately off to the old tricks.
Yep. So I was immediately... I was looking at it going, oh shit, did I watch this and just miss the fact that everything looks like Man on Fire, but... In a train yard. I was glad that it was really only that I looked at and went, oh Christ, did we need it? Everything else, I think exactly. He played his hand fairly well.
Yes, agreed. Now, although I understand that how that train got under power is pretty much the truth, if I'm not mistaken. The one that actually did happened in a similar manner.
Yep.
That then is what's shown on screen. But I mean, just watching it, I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You're not fucking Usain Bolt. Like, you're a fat, dumpy dude. Like, why would you get out of the cab, right? And if you do get out of it, aren't you putting on a sprint immediately?
Well, see, the thing for me, my huge dislike actually plays into exactly the same thing. And it really is that they go overboard to make Ethan Suplee and TJ Miller just look like absolute arse clowns. Like, the whole time. They're fucking not fit to be doing any job. The pair of them.
Exactly.
They're just cutting corners left and right. And I understand that, there is people that would be doing that they're cutting the corners and are not competent at what they're doing. But you feel like these two, the way that they're portrayed in the movie, they've done this shit a few times. They've fucked up the little jobs so they wouldn't have the big job.
Yeah. And I know that TJ Miller kind of says to him, don't get out of the cab. Like, don't get out of the cab. But even then, it doesn't take away from the fact that they've spent the last, 5 minutes just fucking grab-arsing and fucking around.
But then you look at TJ Miller after that, when he's in the fucking, in that, I don't even know, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like the ute thing on the train tracks.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there with Ned fucking hanging out the window, giving him the bird and calling him names and shit. And it's like, mate, you're the one that fucked this up. Like, you pair sitting in there that are responsible. So you should cop an earful, and you'll be copping plenty more when you get back there, you know? I felt like they could have just played it with a little bit of that, but not necessarily just been such bozos. They could have just been, I don't know, the pair of them could have just been cocky hotshots and fucked it up.
No, but you know what? You didn't even need to be cocky. You could have just simply been that the reason he got out of the cab seemed kind of plausible, I guess.
Well, it was just they were under time pressure.
Yeah.
They didn't do everything that they needed to do, but I just felt the way that they played the two characters, it just felt a little off. And I mean,
and you're right.
It's never worse. It is never worse than when they put Ethan Supplee's picture on the news. And honestly, it looked like, I mean, it was like a live action version of fucking Homer Simpson blowing up the nuclear power plant and Kent Brockman talking about, it was Homer Simpson causing the nuclear meltdowns. I was looking at it going, it said that's essentially what it is. I mean, the picture they took of him, he was looking mopey and stupid. I didn't feel like we needed that.
Yeah, and the worst thing about the TJ Miller scene where he's sticking the finger up at Ned and calling him a dickhead and everything is, at this stage, we just realised the train's fucking at full speed.
Yeah. So
it's not just a coaster, it's going.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's me, I'm packing my fucking locker and getting out.
Yeah, that's right. I'm saying, I'll see you later. I've just got a little job to do, taking off. I'm not chasing the train. I'm crossing the state lines before you can fucking figure out that it was me. They also did a little bit of that with the bloke that rams the horses. That could have been anyone. You didn't need it to be a bloke that looked like Willie Nelson listening to music, listening to some hillbilly music that's going dun 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 dun. It didn't have to be him. It could have been anyone. Could have been anyone looking at the radio that ran up the back of that horse. That fell in the same category for me.
It just sort of, they were two sort of stereotypical characterizations, which was weird because they'd done a pretty good job of characterizing the other big name characters in the film well.
Yeah.
So then I know that they're only small parts, but you just had to dial it down a touch. And the same goes for my biggest dislike is Galvin. The political side of it and the money side of it and him almost being like the villain. And I know why he's there, because things take certain turns because of his interference.
Yeah.
They decide to use the derailleur. They decide to put the bloke on top of the train and try and slow it down. It's his decision-making. Yeah. And it's that whole idea of, I'm not listening to anyone else.
Yeah, I felt like there was a particular scene too where Rosario Dawson is kind of surprised that it's Galvin that's made the call. So I felt like if he's not yelling like the fucking bloke from Die Hard, his name escapes me for the moment, Dwayne T.
Robertson.
Dwayne T. Robertson. If he's not yelling like that from minute one, when he's trying to gather the information and putting people down, like, he's in a position of power. But it feels like if she finds that out and he's been more open to receiving her information earlier, it feels like a bit of a betrayal. But where we find out, and she says, they're using the derailer. I suggested that when you find out that it's him, when he dismissed the plan and started screaming and yelling from the start, I feel like if he had been a bit more open and there was a bit more back and forth, but he just shut it down quickly and then does it later on, it feels like a bit more of a betrayal, and then you can probably roll into him screaming like an asshole and doing what he needs to be doing. But yeah, again, it feels like one of those characters that's a little bit necessary to put.
Yeah,
because you can't. The train
I agree
can't
that you kind of have to have him.
The train can't necessarily be the only complication. There's got to be the drama between people. But yeah, I feel right. I feel like you're right. It needed to be a little more balanced than what it was. Yeah,
in a way, they may have been able to write around his character if you didn't want him there. Like, Rosario Dawson's making the calls and the derailer just doesn't work or whatever.
Yeah, but again, she's working hand in hand with them, so there's no drama between her and Frank and everyone.
So you need her to be on Frank and Will's side, and you need to have somebody against them, which is Galvin. Plus, he plays into the conversation on the radio where Frank says he's been fired. And I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah, I actually felt the one that was a little bit superfluous was the agent. I mean, in the end, he's the one that knows about the chemicals and then suggests they do a little bit of braking and accelerating. Other than that, he's just fucking floating around.
Exactly.
Sort of like, could that knowledge not have been rolled in? I mean,
couldn't that knowledge have been given by the...
Couldn't we have had Ned? Couldn't we have had Ned saying, "What do you mean it's that sort of shit?" And then everyone goes, "You know about that?" And then Ned starts talking about the chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that would have played right into Ned because he was sort of this cocksure, know everything sort of dude.
Yeah, yeah. He kind of got nothing to do.
Train information could have been, the start, the acceleration, deceleration thing could have come from the guy who's with the headset. He could have been he's a rail guy.
Yeah,
he's just working comms. There were ways to cut that guy out. I think looking at it now, you still need Galvin, but there were ways to make his role less, small it down a little bit and make it key. Yeah. Just some key points when we needed him. That shit where he rings the fucking bloke on the golf course about how much money it's going to cost. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about this. Get rid of it. It's not important. We know that Galvin is a company man.
You already had the other guy telling him about the financials, right? So Galvin could have just been fucking making that call with him.
Yes.
He could have just been saying...
We know that Galvin's a company man.
Yeah.
And financials is going to be important.
Yeah.
We know that because he's a company guy. We don't need to go into the politics and the cost of it because who gives a shit? This train's out of control.
Yep.
No matter how you slice it, we're losing money. The whole thing looks fucking bad. So just there was ways to perhaps kind of close up Galvin's involvement to the key pieces, e.g. the derailer and the decision to put those guys, try and drop them on the train, which ends in fiery mayhem. And it means that Denzel can say that you've already fired me.
Yeah, that's right.
But Galvin didn't need to be the biggest prick in the world either.
No, I think it should have been a bit more balanced. I felt like Rosario Dawson feeling like Galvin had her back and then being betrayed when she finds out that he is doing the derailing. I thought that might have worked a little better.
And he could have even said, that's where you could have said, look, this is what the people who own the fucking company want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not my decision, it's theirs. That's where you can just roll in the whole money politics thing for a split second. Because, you know, it's a conglomerate that runs the railway, which is what these things are, you know?
Yep.
There just seems to be a lot of characters, and you just pointed out our mate, the safety guy. We didn't really need him. Ned disappears for periods, you know, and characters come and go. It's a little bit heavily stuffed. About the hour mark, I'm sitting there going, Christ, we've got fucking people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to find a small snippet of each one. And we even lose some time in the cab with Will and Frank.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we've got so many other players. So just perhaps a little streamlining there. Again, getting rid of the safety guy and bringing down Galvin's role would have given you those extra minutes to perhaps, you know, reassess everything.
Mm-hmm.
But look, it wasn't too big a deal because I still knew where they were all at.
Yeah.
And that's the key positive to it, is you know where these guys are all at.
Yeah, and it's pretty well spread out amongst the characters that you want to be with, for the most part.
Exactly. I've got nothing. I really like the idea of the news reports because that's what we would do today. You know, in today's society, that is how this stuff would be covered.
Yeah.
24/7. I mean, fuck, look at COVID. Jesus Christ. You turn on the bloody 24/7 news cycle and it was fucking COVID. It was just constant. But I just feel they do lean a little bit on that for exposition. A touch too heavily. About halfway through.
Yeah.
You get a lot of news reports.
A little bit, and it seems to, it's doing it quickly.
Fucking Ethan Suplee's mugshot.
Yeah, that's right. Ken Brockman talking about it.
Reason why we're in trouble.
I mean, I think this movie is why that bloke is now ripped like a fucking... He's built like a brick shithouse because he's fucking... Yeah. He saw how he was portrayed in this movie and said, fuck that.
Thinking, shit.
I'm not Homer Simpson.
But yeah, I just feel like they do lean a little bit too much on it for exposition at key points. It just feels a little bit too much. We're cutting around between news stations.
Yep.
And not going to a character. You know, we don't get to see much of the characters in that little period where they're just sort of showcasing the news stuff all over.
Yeah.
My only other dislike, and I just find this amusing, only Tony Scott or Craig Baxley. Ned's getting a police escort.
Yep.
But we've got to flip a couple of cop cars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a couple of them are going to crash into each other, flip one over, and there's got to be fucking 25 cars behind him.
It's like, Tony, shit. He's getting an escort. It's not a fucking demolition derby, mate. We didn't need that.
Look, that massive train rolling along is pretty, it's pretty scary on its own. We didn't need cars banging into each other and fucking, adding that little layer that, again, it's just there for 2 seconds of, oh, shit, and then we go on to something else.
Yeah, agreed. That was it for me.
Yeah, that was me covered as well.
Anything
My
else?
major one was really the stuff that I mentioned about the characterizations there in a couple of instances.
Yeah. But overall, definitely a 4 out of 5. That is Unstoppable. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and Podomatic. Send us an email at thrillme@iinet.net.au. We're on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia and at Podomatic at thrillme.podomatic.com. Don't forget to rate and review us. We're also on Instagram at thrillmepodcastau. Keep an eye on the Facebook page for details of our next episode. Have a fantastic 2021 if you can. And looking forward to the new year. But until then, take it easy and we'll catch up with everyone later. Cheers.
Find the podcast at Podomatic or on iTunes. Don't forget to rate and review. Like us on Facebook at Thrill Me Podcast Australia or contact us at thrillme, all one word, all lowercase, at iinet.net.au.